This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good? Baseball Unstitched. We are back. We got a good episode for you guys today. Talking a little bit about the wild card in the playoff race because, yeah, it's that time of year and you know we've got to. Big news. Passan dropped an article talking about what is now going to be referred to as the amateur recovery period policy. We're going to dive into that a little bit. It stems from the Flax, what was it called? What did they actually call the report? The 62-page report.
I think they called it the pitcher injury report. Yeah.
Okay. So this rule is stemming from the pitcher injury report that we saw from last offseason. And this is the MLB's action towards what they found in that report. We're going to dive a little bit deeper into that for you so you have a good idea. And of course, there's been a couple of pitchers down the stretch on playoff or potential playoff teams who have been rolling. And we're going to talk about those three guys in a little bit more detail. But before any of that, Flax, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. Commanders won on Sunday. Marcus Mariota returned to the helm of an NFL team against his former organization. The what are they? The Vegas Raiders now?
They're the Las Vegas Raiders.
They're the Las Vegas Raiders. So yeah, it was a good weekend overall. Nothing
Absolutely.
much more to it. My wife showed me a new brunch spot. That was delicious.
Yeah, dude. Taylor and I were out in the mountains this weekend, you know, hanging out. Got to see some leaves changing. So that was pretty sweet. Enjoyed it. But baseball was on the TV all weekend long because this week in baseball is all about the wild cards. However, we're not going to talk about those until that segment. But Flax, what happened this week in baseball?
This week in baseball, like you mentioned, the MLB is taking action, which is exciting. But on the field, in-game, Cal Raleigh, 58th home run of the year, now only 2 home runs away from the 60 home run mark, and potentially only 5 swings away from a new American League single-season home run record, potentially MVP-worthy record, if I don't say so myself. It also pushed him into the all-time single-season record by a catcher. He also now owns the single-season home run record by a Mariner, toppling Ken Griffey Jr., which is crazy camp for Cal Raleigh to be in as a catcher. Also on the field, top 5 batting average leaders in September are exactly who we thought they would be. Yandy Diaz, Dalen Lyle, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Romy Gonzalez, and Jake Mangum. If you don't know who Romy Gonzalez is, he plays for the Boston Red Sox. Jake Mangum plays for the Rays. And Dalen Lyle plays for the Nationals. The other two, Yandy Diaz and Vlad Guerrero Jr., most people know they seem to be household names at this point. AL and NL MVP races continue to narrow down. Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh, very obviously, in a tight race. Depends on who you ask. It's a very old school, new school conversation. A lot of old school in this conversation is, you know, why would we take the guy hitting 260 over the guy hitting 330? Who cares about 8 more home runs? I don't unsubscribe to that. I think there's a little bit that goes into some uniqueness to the records that Cal Raleigh is breaking. I think one of the things that's interesting, though, is the guys who set those records when they set those records also did not win MVP the year that they set those records. So, interesting to think about.
Over there. I like that. Plus, we've got to remember, Cal Raleigh is a catcher. And I know nobody wants to hear that, but we're talking about a guy who has played a plethora of games behind the plate. This is not like the guy who, he's a primary catcher, but has been DH all year. No, Raleigh has been a legitimate backstop all year long.
I don't know that anybody's caught more innings than he has this year, to be honest with you.
The defensive numbers are down, but as we've learned from our good friend Jack Wilson, when you focus more on the offense, the defense hurts a little bit. And when you focus more on the defense, the offense hurts a little bit.
Now, flipping over to the NL side, Kyle Schwarber, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. I think it's really hard because, like, all likelihood is it's going to be Shohei. And I don't disagree with it. I think I probably deal with some Shohei fatigue more than anything. I think it's great what he does in the game. I think it's really impressive. I also think that there are guys in the NL that do MVP level and worthy things. Juan Soto's having his best year ever. Juan Soto will inevitably and forever be a top 3 vote getter in the MVP. Will he ever win one? It might be when somebody else is injured at this rate, which is a shame to say. Kyle Schwarber's having his best year, but the likelihood is he'll probably end up third in that race because the majority of what he's bringing to the table is just a stupid amount of power. And then shout out to Junior Caminero outside of all of this. 22 years old, putting up an absolutely absurd year. His month of September has been phenomenal. He's got 5 home runs, dealing with day-to-day back soreness and still hitting 300. I think he's slugging like 600 in the month. It's unbelievable. On that same vein and in that same locker room, Yandy Diaz won AL Player of the Week. Matt Olson won NL Player of the Week. Matt Olson went on an absolute tear. Shout out Ben Weaver from Tomahawk Talk Pod. Put up some unbelievably cool nuggets on Matt Olson's stats this past week against the Nationals. They just kept throwing to him. I really don't understand it. When did we stop pitching around guys that are just going to keep beating you into the dirt? It was unbelievable.
He was out there terrorizing my Washington Nationals
nice.
all week.
I don't know that I understood that one, but okay. That one went over my head.
He was on a tear.
Oh, got it. Yep.
Come on. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, shame him. No, I'm kidding.
Connor Griffin was named Baseball America's minor league player of the year. If you don't know who Connor Griffin is, that's Connor with a K. He is a phenomenal baseball player. Came out of high school. He's currently 19 years old. Yeah. Putting up stupid numbers in the minor leagues, moving very, very, very quickly. Other big news off the field. MLB owners approved Patrick Zalupski's. Sure, I messed one of those up.
You hammered that.
His ownership group and their purchase of the Rays. Assumedly continuing to be the Tampa Bay Rays. We will see in the next 4 or 5 years. I know they're supposed to be back in St. Pete next year. So big news on the front of the Rays. Hopefully a better communicative structure between Zalupski and the government. I don't know, whatever local government it is managing the stadium construction down there in on what is it, the western seaboard of
How about the
Florida?
The local state and city government.
There we go. Yeah. No, we got there. And finally, this day in baseball, September 22nd, in 2015, Jake Arrieta for the Cubs becomes the league's first 20-game winner, and rookie Chris Bryant sets the rookie record for home runs in a season for the Chicago Cubs with 26. And there you have this week in baseball.
We need a little button that I can press where people start cheering after that. I think that's our next add to all of this.
I think we just need cut in boop boop on to the next segment.
Man, we are full of good ideas between the puns and the soundboard that we need now. I love it. Vote for whether or not you think the pun or the soundboard comment was better today. But moving right along, in the words of my father, the playoff race, the wild card run. We are just rocking and rolling at the current moment. There are many storylines to watch down the stretch, and we're so excited that that's the case. This is one of the most fun runs I think that we're going to have to the playoffs in quite a while. Flax, let's start with the NL division leaders. Starting in the East is where we're going to go, and that's the Phillies, who clinched the division, and they are currently fighting for the number 1 seed. They essentially are 4 games back of Milwaukee, but is Milwaukee holding the tiebreaker, or are they?
Threw me into the Milwaukee holds the tiebreaker right now. You threw me into the fire there. I was like, is he going to ask me about this? My goodness. No, Milwaukee holds the tiebreaker. They won the season series 4-2 in 6 games. Listen, I've been telling people for the last month, I think the Phillies are probably top of the pedestal for who I expect to come out of the NL side. I like the way they've been playing all year long. They took advantage of the Mets playing some bad baseball, being on the roller coaster that is their season. They just played consistent baseball through and through. They made some solid moves to shore up the back end of their bullpen. I just think in general, it's a very experienced offense. It's not a team that has a lot of guys on it that have done anything but play in the postseason. And it's Red October at the bank. It's a heck of an atmosphere for anyone to have to go into. Even if they don't take the number 1 seed, I think if you can get to a 7-game series and it is against the Brewers, I still think in the 3 games you're going to get at home, you hold such an opportunity to create momentum comparatively. It's hard for me to believe that's not the team that's just going to play their best baseball come the first couple of weeks in October.
I feel like this organization has pushed the right buttons all year long. Every team has lulls throughout a season, absolutely. But I look at right now what's happening down this stretch. Weston Wilson, Brandon Marsh, Max Kepler, Harrison Bader, Otto Kemp, right? We are seeing guys who are not those mainstay names that everybody knew were going to perform well this year and expected them to perform well this year are really coming to the forefront. Brandon Marsh has arguably been the best outfielder on this roster in the last 2 weeks. It's been excellent, right?
Unbelievable.
Max Kepler.
The German Suburban.
He is German Suburban balls over the fence like nobody's business.
I will say this, and I see a lot of people talk about it. Max Kepler, in his what has become like a platoon role, hits the ball harder than anybody in that lineup consistently. Always hitting the ball hard right at guys. It's just a matter of time when you start doing that to the baseball that they start finding gaps. It's like in basketball, right? You never want to start a game 10 for 10 because the likelihood is you're not keeping it up, and when stretch time comes, you're probably falling off the wagon. Max Kepler's gone the other way. He was hitting balls right at guys. I think the tide's turning and he's finally starting to find gaps and he's starting to find holes. That's what you want if you're a Phillies team, because the Schwarbers, the Turners, the Bryson Stotts, the Harpers, they're not going to be able to do everything. You need other guys to be able to hit and play the game, and they're starting to do it.
And then let's just move over to what they did this year throughout either the offseason or during the season with their pitching staff and bullpen. Walker Buehler, Yohan Duran, David Robertson, Lou Trevino. I mean, like, we're talking about guys that not only they added who were excellent arms, but guys who did have playoff experience and have been around the league. They're not people that you're scared of putting in a big moment. We made the joke already when we thought Walker Buehler was going to end up starting games for the Dodgers in the playoffs. When somebody inevitably, unfortunately, is hurt and they need a start, don't be surprised when it's Walker.
Oh, he's already
Buehler.
getting one. Rob Thompson said he's starting this week.
Right, and I'm talking playoff specifically.
Oh, yes.
The big
Absolutely.
piece here is, and we're going to talk more about Buehler a little bit later in the show, so we're not going to beat that one down, but also forgot Jesus Luzardo. I don't know. That guy's been kind of good. That trade's looking like it's worth every single prospect that was given up this offseason, and nobody is going to be concerned about what the haul was when you have a guy throwing the way he is.
Well, I mean, they're probably going to go into the DS, their first 3 games, starting left-handed pitchers. And I think there's a lot of people that would be uncomfortable with that because while left-handed pitchers are weird, you have an opportunity to potentially go Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Ranger, Suarez. You could piggyback Luzardo and Suarez with either Buehler, T1 Walker, or Aaron Nola. 2 of those 3 guys. You're saving your bullpen, really only having to throw 1 or 2 innings a game. The expectation game 1 is that a Christopher Sanchez could go 7, only need 2 innings on the back end there. Like, there's a lot of opportunity that they could zoom through the first 3 games of a DS. And if they need a 4th, understand where you sit going into game 3 of the series and make a decision there of who gets a start. That's where I think a guy like a Walker Buehler could come in. Or if you do get to game 4 after piggybacking guys, that's the guy you leave off because you know he could go longer. Or Nola is a guy you leave off because you know he can go longer. All that to say, the Phillies are a team that have options. Not everybody coming into the postseason this year has the options that they have with the roster that they've filled out. And I think the back end of the bullpen, like you said, has just gotten so much better. I mean, how obvious was David Robertson? We talked about him numerous times throughout the year of like, somebody has to go grab this guy. Somebody has to go find him. 30% Ks in 15 innings this year. I mean, sure, the dude's 40, but he throws strikes.
Ultimate been there, done that.
Oh, yeah,
Ultimate
absolutely.
been there, done that, right? And you knew he was going to be able to meld in there. Phillies are an absolute wagon, in our opinion, and it'll be fun to see what happens with them as we continue to move. But again, clinched the division. They are fighting for the number 1 seed. Moving to the NL Central with the team that currently holds the number 1 seed, and that would be the Milwaukee Brewers, who clinched the division with a loss from the Cubs yesterday. Their magic number is 2 games to clinch the number 1 seed in the NL Central. This is a team who I would argue was the unassuming champs of the season. Coming into the year, they strike me as another group that everybody was looking at as, yeah, I guess they could be good. And Pat Murphy said, hold my beer, watch this. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, there's a select few managers in the league that I think everybody knows. You kind of just don't count these guys out. I think Pat Murphy's one. I think Lavulo, I'll never say his name right. Lavello. It's crazy. I'm pretty good with names. His just does not roll off my tongue. But Lavello's another one. Tito's another one. Like, guys that you just know they're going to push the right buttons when the time comes, but they're also going to communicate the right way when the time comes. I think Rob Thompson's another one of those guys for the Phillies. But I saw Bob Costas had done an interview with Pat Murphy, and early in the season, Sal Frelick had overthrown a cutoff man on a throw home against the Cardinals, and Lars Nootbaar took second base on the throw. The next inning, Sal Frelick was supposed to hit second, didn't get to hit, was benched. And everybody was like, what the heck's going on? And then the questions came, hey, did you have a conversation with him? What'd you say to me? He goes, no. Because he knows that if this team is going to play to the level that they can play, guys like Sal Frelick have to hold themselves to the highest standard. Like, he even said, I'll go up to Sal Frelick and I'll tell him, he's like, I don't know why you're signing autographs. You better be saving that pen to sign some college applications. He goes, you're 5'7", 190. I don't know how much longer you're staying in this. You should go get an MBA. And it's the way that guys like Pat Murphy joke around with guys like Sal Frelick to be like, listen, man, you belong here. I'm gonna joke with you, but like, you also need to be grounded and know the only way you get to stay here is if you hold yourself to that level. He doesn't have to say things to guys. He expects you to hold yourself to that standard. And then when guys do, the team plays to the level they can play. The reason they're 95 and 61 is because they don't make mistakes like other teams do. They let other teams beat themselves. They take hard-nosed at-bats. They put the ball in play. They don't miss cutoffs anymore. They don't overrun bases and give away 90 feet. They do the right things that other teams seemingly are letting go by the wayside. And we've been talking about it all year because teams have been doing it all year. How many times has a team not known what the heck an infield fly is? I can almost guarantee you that if that happened in the Milwaukee Brewers, Pat Murphy wouldn't even let him in the clubhouse the next day. He'd make him go recite the MLB, the Major League Baseball rule book before they were allowed back in the clubhouse. Because that's what it takes when you don't have a 1 through 7 of superstars leading your roster. When you don't have a 1 through 3 of aces running through your pitching staff. When you don't know who the next guy up is, but you know somebody's going to step up and be that. When you've got a mid-major rookie playing center field or left field, and you've got a D3 guy playing third base that are both contributing in major ways to this offense. It takes a guy like Pat Murphy at the helm to help everybody understand what their role is and the standard they need to hold themselves to, because when they do that, the whole team will be rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah, and I think this is a team that has the ability to make a run simply because of overall levels of discipline. There's no other way to put that. They are the most, if not the most, fundamentally sound team from a defensive perspective in all of baseball at the current moment. And I think it's lost a lot upon people about how much that means, right? We've seen the Cleveland Guardians find their way into the playoffs for years. And a lot of that was the fact that they play fundamental baseball right. And it's hard to quote unquote steal runs from them because they're not going to give those easy plays up. Before we move on from the Brewers too, shout out to Christian Yelich. He's about to play as many games as he's played in the last 3 seasons for the Milwaukee Brewers, about to eclipse the potentially 30 home run plus mark for the first time since 2019.
Yeah, baby.
Had an excellent year. His interview after they clinched was awesome in the clubhouse. Make sure you watch it. This is a guy who lives, breathes, and dies baseball, and I love it. Great clubhouse leader. And then also, Freddie Peralta looking like a number 1. They needed that so badly this year.
Yeah, baby.
Big fan of him. He's the guy that I was hoping many different teams would target. I don't think they're going to let him escape out of Milwaukee after the way he has played. But let's move right along here. The NL West is kind of who we thought, but hey, the Padres, they're hanging just a little bit. However, the Dodgers clinched a playoff berth. The magic number to clinch the division is only 2 games with 6 games to play. So the Padres would essentially have to win out. Let's not play games with that statement. And bigger than anything, the team that everybody said was going to destroy the MLB this year and win 120 plus games has been eliminated out of the number 1 seed conversation so far. I don't say that disrespectfully. I say that because
it's a big word to be throwing around there. Eliminated.
Eliminated.
No, I agree. I mean, listen, the division is exactly who we thought they were, right? Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants, Rockies. There is not a soul in the baseball community that is shocked by the way this has shaken out in terms of where those teams stand. What they are most shocked about is the fact the Dodgers weren't better. But I will say this for the Dodgers. They were very injury-ridden in the back of their bullpen. Trinan was out for a while. Kirby Yates has been hurt. I think Vesey has not been exactly what they expected him to be. Brusdar Graterol hurt out for the season. A lot of big-name guys for them that you would want to potentially be a part of this World Series winning run are not there or weren't there for a large period of time and are now coming back and slowly starting to get into it. Tanner Scott seems like the baseball world is a boulder on top of his shoulders. I don't know how that happens to a guy that was on top of the game out of the back of the bullpen 10 months ago, but that's baseball. And I kind of liken back-end bullpen guys to goalies in hockey. They're a different breed. They flip on a switch. The likelihood is Tanner Scott could find some mojo in the last week of the season and be the best bullpen guy of anybody for the month that is October. That's just the way baseball goes and exactly how the back end of the bullpen happens.
Yeah, and with a couple of injuries, what I think has been great for them is watching a guy like Andy Pages really break out this year. Alex Call has been excellent since he's come over from the Nationals, which is awesome. I love to see Call playing well for a multitude of different reasons. I think at the end of the day, I still see it as the Dodgers are going to be an absolute force to be reckoned with, regardless of regular season record. This is a group that has been there, done that. We're watching Mookie Betts start to really turn on the switch over the last month and a half. Freddie Freeman is himself. It's not as if Ohtani's not hitting the ball over the wall every 6 or 7 at-bats, right? This team still has all the legs in the world. I just want this to be almost, and I say it in a positive way, just the example of how baseball operates next time we see a quote-unquote super team come into a season. Baseball will baseball, right? The rotation has gotten healthier down the stretch. Blake Snell looked fantastic a few days ago, right? They are going to be a freight train that nobody wants to face in the playoffs and have a great opportunity to find their way back to the World Series, regardless of what the regular season record ended up being. Now, Flax, let's get to the really interesting stuff here, and that is the NL wildcard race. The Cubs have officially clinched a playoff spot. That playoff spot is officially a wild card spot. So the number 1 wild card spot, more than likely, is gone in the NL.
For the team that came out of the gates about as hot as anybody in the NL.
Absolutely. And a team that could be scary down the stretch. The Padres, the magic number to clinch a wild card spot is now 1 game. So what does this mean? Oh yeah, everybody else is fighting for how many? Count them. 1. 1 spot left in the playoffs, more than likely, as of either Tuesday, if I had to guess, or Wednesday. Who are those teams? The Mets, the Reds, the Diamondbacks, and the San Francisco Giants. These are going to be fun. And before we start breaking these down, I want to give you guys a little understanding of where these teams are and who they're going to play over this week in this time frame. The Mets have 6 games left, as per everybody. 3 versus the Cubs and 3 versus the Marlins. The Reds have 3 games versus the Pirates and 3 games versus the Brewers. The Diamondbacks, 3 games versus the Dodgers and 3 games versus the Padres. Yikes. The Giants, 3 games versus the Cardinals and 3 games versus the Rockies. Now, where do they sit at the current moment? The Mets and the Reds are tied for that final wild card spot at the current moment. The Diamondbacks sit 1 game behind both of those teams and could be tied with them in the blink of an eye. And the Giants are 3 games out of the final wild card spot. But very important we bring them up because they have, quote unquote, the softest schedule of all of these teams, though they need the most help. Flax, when you look at this, we've been talking about this for weeks. The answer has changed multiple times. What's going to happen with this final playoff spot in the NL?
Oh, boy. I think it's hard because, the Giants are helped out tremendously. The fact that 3 of their games are not against the division opponent. So it's a team that doesn't see them a lot. It's a team that isn't close by to them. It's a team that is going to have to come to them, I believe. And then you've got 3 against the Rockies, a team that's been playing better baseball in the second half, but still a team you should take care of business against. That being said, they've not put themselves in a good position with how the back end of the last month has gone. Or the last 4 weeks, I guess I should say. When I truly think about who I think is going to end up in that position, as crazy as this is to say, I think it's the Reds, right? You've got Pittsburgh and you've got Milwaukee, but you've got Milwaukee on the back end of clinching, knowing where they sit. There is a potential that you don't get the full force of Milwaukee, at least not from a pitching staff perspective. They may be trying to rest some bullpen arms, give some guys some days. They may not let all of their starters go full force. You may have a little bit of wiggle room here. The other unfortunate thing is you may end up getting Jacob Mizorowski out of the bullpen, which would stink. But the Reds are pitching really well right now, and you're facing a Pittsburgh offense that's not great, and a Brewers offense that is going to scrap and claw, but you can definitely out-hit. I think for the Mets have the best team in this. When you look at the lineup that everyone's putting out there, it is a team that you say, there's no reason why in the next 6 games this team should not win more than the others. The unfortunate thing is they've put themselves in a spot where they do not own tiebreakers. They're not in a position more than likely to end up winning the same amount of games as a team like the Reds and benefiting from it. That's not a really good position to be in. The Diamondbacks, while they're only 1 game out, they have to face the Dodgers and the Padres. Both in division opponents, both very, very good opponents. It's going to be a tough road to hoe. If they do play well and they do win, they'll be the hottest team going into the playoffs without a doubt. So I think it's going to be the Reds, but I think the most competitive team, if they make it out of that bunch, is going to be the Diamondbacks.
Listen, I think you said it perfectly. I think on paper it should absolutely be the New York Mets. I really don't think that's a question. I think that what people don't realize, and it's just me growing up for 30 years watching NL East baseball, them finishing the season against the Marlins could be the worst thing that happens. The NL East just beats the living crap out of each other 100% of the time, and the Marlins will look at this as an opportunity to play spoiler and play it very well. It's just normally how it looks. Plus, the Marlins have not played poor baseball over the last 10 games.
I also saw the Marlins are lining up Yuri Perez for that series. The Marlins are very intent on ending the Mets season. I don't know if you guys understand this, but if you're on a ball club that is not playing in the postseason, these are the most important games of your season. You actually get to impact the postseason, and you don't care who's in front of you unless it's another team that is potentially going to be playing in October. And if you can change that, you're going to feel a little bit better about yourselves. The Marlins will be playing very, very tough baseball in that series.
Yeah. And listen, and then on the flip side, the Reds are one of the hottest teams in baseball, right? Coming off of a sweep of the Cubs. I mean, absolutely electric. That team has played so well. Hunter Green has looked like everything and more, and I expect him to continue to develop and look like the number one that we all knew he could be. Throwing a complete game in a 1-0 shutout for your team against the Chicago Cubs, who are already a huge rival and in the middle of a playoff race, was absolutely electric. You don't see that much in baseball, as most of you know nowadays, with starters going that deep into games. I am also, as much as it stresses me out, going to go with the Reds here. I just think the Mets have a much more difficult road to hoe than people realize. If the Diamondbacks had a better slate of opponents, I think that would have really, really helped them out here. I recognize that the Dodgers have clinched a playoff spot. However, if they go into that last 3 games against the Padres because they played well against the Dodgers, that means the Padres are going to be hunting for the division. I think that's the big thing I want people to remember. For the Diamondbacks to stay in this, they probably need at least 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, and the Padres probably need to win out if they want that division crown. And if the Padres sweep coming into this series and the Diamondbacks leave them any wiggle room, the Padres are going to come out there to stomp them if they have any ability to do it. Now,
and the Padres are playing the Brewers, by the way. The Padres are playing the Brewers in those 3 games. So not an easy sweep. But if they sweep, that means they're playing good baseball.
Absolutely. I would love to. I really like the roster that Posey's put together. I think this Giants team is going to be much more of a force next year. Unfortunately, I just think 3 games back with 6 games to go is too much. They would need way too much help. So either way, sounds like we're both on the Reds. Moving over to the AL side. Let's start with those division leaders because there's one race in here that is fantastic. But let's start with the AL East. And we had the conversation about the Brewers kind of being that team that people probably weren't ready to run away with the division the way they did. The Toronto Blue Jays have clinched a playoff berth. They're 2 games away from clinching the number 1 seed in the AL. And I got to be honest with you, 2 games up on the Yankees in the AL East, that's a bigger lead than people realize in that division. I'm just saying. Especially
since there's a lot of division play that's about to happen this week. I think that's the most important thing to remember. This whole week, the next 6 games. I think the Orioles are going to have a chance to have an impact when they're in New York at the end of the week. I think the Red Sox, I believe the Red Sox play the Blue Jays this week, early this week, this next 3 games. So you're looking at a situation where if the Blue Jays just handle their business for the next couple of days, they own the tiebreaker against the Yankees, they could lock up that 1 seed, lock up the division, be done with it, and not have to worry about asking for help the last 3 games of the season. I'm sure that's what they would like to do. They have the pitching to do it. The struggle is sometimes the offense just turns off. Shane Bieber lost 2-1 the other night. Shane Bieber gave up 2 runs. You have an offense like the Blue Jays that have been running over people like a train on train tracks. And then all of a sudden they go and lay a goose egg in a game that you get a really good start from a guy. You can't do that, right? If you're going to lose down the stretch, lose big, be okay with it, move on to the next game, and score your runs. I think that the likelihood is you probably see the Blue Jays clean it up as they are in position to do, but it's definitely not going to be an easy stretch for any of the teams trying to chase them down. And let's not forget, right? I mean, the Red Sox, for where they're at, are not going after the division, but they're playing for something. They're still fighting to grow their wild card lead because the wild card race is really tight. And I know we're going to talk about it after the division, but their games against the Blue Jays are just as important for them as they are for the Blue Jays trying to clinch that division.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing I look at, and we talked about it on the live stream last week, is that there's a couple players that they really need to turn it on. I think one of the big ones for me is their strong side platoon and Addison Barger. He's a guy who was excellent against right-handed pitching early in the year. Unfortunately, over the second half of the season and so far to start September, has not looked like himself, hitting .208 with 2 home runs. He is also striking out at a much higher clip. He's got 13 Ks against 5 walks. That's a guy that they really do need to see turn it on. Now, on the flip side, they do have a healthy Dalton Varsho, which I think is going to be huge for that outfield. And again, shout out to George Springer and Bo Bichette, right? They're two guys who did not have great years last year. They were pretty beat up by not only the Blue Jays fan base, but most of baseball. Bichette's about to lead baseball in hits this year, and George Springer looks like Astros George Springer that was winning World Series with them.
Yeah, one of the best leadoff hitters of our generation that doesn't necessarily get talked about being that guy for as long as he's been doing it. I think the biggest thing for George Springer's career is I think he can finally leave the Astros nonsense in his wake. I think finally putting a season up like this after being with the Blue Jays for a couple of years and not necessarily having that level of play, he can finally say, hey, look, I am good at this thing. It wasn't because of all the stuff we were doing in 2017, 2018. It's fun to see. It's exciting to see. I love watching George Springer play baseball. It's infuriating when he plays against you because it's such a difficult out. But I think that's what's so great about what he does in that leadoff spot. So it'll be interesting to see how they close things up. I think the more interesting division is the next one we're going to talk about, which is the AL Central. And this is your home. I want to hear about your AL Central takes, and then I'll give you the rundown from Jackson's thread today after you go.
My home away from home as we continue to bust through here. For many of you who know, I lived in Northeast Ohio for 10 years. The Tigers right now owning a one-game lead in the division. Repeating, a one-game lead in the division. This is a Tigers team who at one point led the division by 15 and a half games, and within the past 10 days led the division by 9.5 games. And then the Cleveland Guardians did what the Cleveland Guardians do. They became the hottest team in baseball just because they felt like it in September. I mean, there's no real other way to put it. When you've got guys like Bo Naylor, a different Bo Naylor hitting their stride right at the right time. There's not much else to be said. The Cleveland Guardians, again, playing great defense, doing everything they can on the mound to keep themselves in games and hitting just enough. It's what they do. Plus, as much as I say hitting just enough, they've scored 5+ runs in like 6 of the last 10 games. And that is not something this roster does on a regular basis.
They're also just not giving any runs up. There was a tweet I saw from Codify about how many runs they've given up. Let me see if I can find this. It was the most absurd list of numbers, and the lack of runs that they have given up was just nowhere close to anybody else. Runs allowed in the last 18 games. The Cleveland Guardians have allowed 28. The next closest is the Chicago Cubs. In the last 18 games, they have given up 65 runs. That is 47 more runs given up. 47, 37. 37 more runs given up than the next closest, or 37 less runs given up than the next closest team. That is insane how good their pitching has been. The back of the bullpen's not giving up anything. The starters are going out and throwing good. There is no way around it. And then on the flip side, you have the Tigers, who can't score runs with men in scoring position. All of their starters seem to have an inability to keep a team off the board. Casey Mize, who looked really good for a stretch, can't get guys out. It's a total reversal. Jackson said entering September 5th, the Guardians were 11 games back of the division. September 5th, they were 11 games back of the division. Since then, they are 15-2, and the Tigers now only hold, like you said, a one-game lead, and the Guardians now hold claim to a wild card spot. They're hitting, as a team, over those 17 games, 248, 319, 411, 18 home runs, as a team, a 104 WRC+, a 9% walk rate, a 318 WOBA. But this is because of guys like David Fry, Bo Naylor, obviously Jose Ramirez. Might have been the greatest thing they ever did during the trade deadline was not trade Stephen Kwan. And then George Valera has been unbelievable. If you didn't know that name, George Valera exists. But then on the flip side, pitching-wise, they've been, even better than you could expect. Logan Allen, during that stretch, has been otherworldly. 0.69 ERA with a 1.99 FIP. Slade Ciccone, a 0.87 ERA with a 3.05 FIP. We are talking about numbers that we haven't seen from some of these pitchers in years. Tanner Bybee, a 1.25 ERA and a 2.36 FIP. It is such clean baseball to watch.
It's what they do. It's really what they do at this point in time in the season. Cleveland has always been known as a pitching factory, and you're seeing why, listening to those numbers. As I mentioned on the live stream, you can't really stress about Cleveland losing arms ever because they're just going to bring up a guy you've never heard of, and he's going to be elite. It's just how they roll. But moving on to the AL West. This was my big pick this year. We had this discussion many a times. The Seattle Mariners now have a 2-game lead of the division over the Houston Astros.
3 games.
And it's 3 game.
Did I mess?
They hold the tiebreaker. They hold the tiebreaker.
No. Sorry, I did not update that. The Mariners hold a 3-game lead. They were tied going into the series and swept the Astros. That's on me.
Is this where we have a boo button? Does that add to the
We could add that in there.
It's going to get used a lot on me.
I don't know why I said anything. Jackson could just correct you and shut you down. That would have been a
your
point.
mistake. That feels
Mine.
weird.
You're the one who said it.
Either way, the Seattle Mariners are having an excellent season. The pitching staff, obviously, they're hoping to see healthy as they continue to move towards the playoffs here. Their magic number to clinch the division is now only 2 games after a sweep of their division rival. The Mariners, the Mariners here finishing the season against the Colorado Rockies and the Dodgers?
That is correct.
Well, they're going to need to go take care of business with the Rockies here to finish and clinch this division. We would expect them to do it. We'll find out if it happens here. But listen, the Mariners are an absolutely magical run. The trade deadline moves that they've made in Josh Naylor, Eugenio Suarez, they have all hit the way they needed to. Suarez has not necessarily been consistent, but by golly, he just has like a 5-game stretch all of a sudden where he can't be stopped. And Josh Naylor has been a great addition to that clubhouse and been extremely consistent for them, having one of his best all-around seasons of his career.
So I'm trying to do the math. I think they're 14-2 since getting swept to start September. They started September. They get swept by the Rays September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. If I'm not mistaken, they are like 13 or 14-2 since that sweep and have just absolutely flipped things on its head. Just cannot be stopped. There was a 10-game win streak in the mix there. Obviously, Cal Raleigh's doing Cal Raleigh things, but Dominic Canzone, phenomenal dude. Really good ball player, and he's been a lot of fun. And it's stuff like that that propels a team to start playing this way during this stretch of the season because there's just a little bit of added juice when you got a guy that you can kind of get behind that's got a little bit of a vibe thing going. I love that for them. But not only that, I mean, they get into what I think is one of the tightest games they've played all year, right? You come in, you're in Houston, you're trying to sweep. If you sweep, you're up 3 games and basically 4 because of the tiebreaker in the division. You lose, and it's now back to 1 game up. Houston is not fighting for their lives in the wild card. They have a game to spare, and on top of that, you do hold the tiebreaker, but you make your life harder going down the stretch. And what do they do in the 2nd inning against Jason Alexander, who's been phenomenal in his last 5 starts? They go ahead and they put together some really tough at-bats. And then of all people, J.P. Crawford hits his 12th bomb of the year, like hard, like hammers a spinner.
A sick bat drop. And he admired that guy.
And then right after that, Randy Arozarena hits a seed up the middle. Hasn't been hitting great. Immediately, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, as soon as he hit the ball, he looked straight up to the sky. It was like, thank God. And then, of course, Cal Raleigh, 2 pitches later, hit his 58th home run of the year. And they're up 7-0 in the 2nd inning of a ballgame. They ended up winning 7-4, 7-3, something like that, and just cruised. Logan Gilbert was phenomenal. Splitter was really good. Bullpen did its job. Like, everything you would expect of this team to do. In game 1 of that series, Brian Wu goes down early because of a pec strain. And what do? The bullpen picks up the slack, pitches innings 5 through 9, no problem. They had already started that game on a hot note with Julio getting a leadoff home run. Eugenio Suarez hit one 2 innings later. Like, they're just doing the right things at the right time. They're playing good baseball. Now the curiosity is that they go back home. How hot do they stay? Because they play really well on the road. All these guys I'm mentioning hit really well on the road. They do not hit as well at home, but they pitch a whole lot better. It'll be interesting to see how that starts to unfold as the rest of the season goes. Fortunately, they got a team like the Rockies who they should be able to take care of business against. And looking at it right now, the Rockies have a tough road to hoe to finish their season. 3 against the Mariners, 3 against the Giants. I don't want to be them.
I wouldn't want to either. Let's move on to this AL wild card. And Flax, after I run through this, I'm going to ask you the exact same question I asked you in the NL. The AL wild card has a lot going on as well here. The Yankees hold the top wild card spot at the current moment. They own a 3-game lead. Their magic number to clinch a playoff berth is 2 or 3 games, depending on tiebreakers. Their next 6 games will be 3 against the White Sox and 3 against the Orioles. That is one of the most beneficial last 6-game stretches of anybody in this race. The Red Sox own a 1-game lead for the second wild card spot. They do hold tiebreakers over the Yankees, Guardians, and Astros, and will play the Tigers in their final series. And this could end up being for the final AL wild card spot. Boston finishes the season here with 3 versus Toronto, and as mentioned, 3 versus Detroit. Cleveland, referred to above as mentioned, owns the tiebreaker against the Astros. They did lose the season series against the Mariners and the tiebreaker against the Tigers due to the 3-game stretch that starts today, Monday the 22nd. That tiebreaker has yet to be decided.
Tomorrow. Today?
Tomorrow. You're right. Tomorrow. I'm sorry. When this episode drops on the 23rd.
There you go. Today.
Again.
How does time work?
Welcome to the life, people. Welcome to the life. 3 games against Detroit and 3 games against the Rangers to finish out their season. And finally, Houston, at the current moment, is tied for the final wild card spot against the Cleveland Guardians. They are 3 games back, as discussed, against the Seattle Mariners in the division. They have 3 versus the streaking A's and 3 versus the Angels to finish out their season. Flax, same question. Who is the final team left to make the playoffs in the AL?
Oh, boy. Well, I think since we're bringing the Red Sox into it, I get to pick 2. And I think when it's
fair. That makes sense.
I think when it's all said and done, I think we're looking at the Guardians and the Red Sox. I think they're taking down those 2. I think the Astros are going to be the team that ends up falling out of it. The Athletics are playing really good baseball right now. They're hitting really well. They're pitching really well. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're getting themselves back into a respectable position. I think the Yankees end up holding that top spot in the wild card, no question. I do think it probably ends up being that Cleveland overtakes the Red Sox for that second wild card spot. The Red Sox take the third wild card spot. Like I said, Houston's probably going to fall back. The Angels series may mean something. I'm thinking that it actually may not mean anything. They're not playing, the Astros are just not playing good baseball right now, and I think they're going to run up against a buzzsaw in the Athletics in the next 3 that's going to make a huge impact on this race. So that's how I've got it broken down.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to, again, unfortunately, it's not fun for the viewer, but I'm going to have to agree with you. I think the biggest piece here is pretty simple. Yordan Alvarez, that injury, I think really, really derailed the Astros. They finally had him back. He was finally starting to look like himself. And by golly, do they need that middle of the order bat at this current moment. Really unfortunate. On the flip side, I think this will be the first playoffs we see without the Houston Astros in recent memory. So
it'll be 9? It'll be the first time in 9 years?
I believe that is correct. It's either 8 or 9 years, but I think you're very close in that number. So I'm going to go Red Sox, Cleveland as well. I also look at Cleveland as if they sneak in, they're going to be the wild card team that nobody wants to face. That's with the Yankees included in there, because in a 3-game series, I think their pitching staff scares the living crap out of teams within the league, regardless of if you know the names that are there or not. Good conversation as always. Flex, let's move on to what we thought was going to be the major topic here. But man, me and you just love talking about playoff baseball.
It's the most important thing in my life right now.
Well, I don't think you're wrong about that statement for either of us. The MLB brought out a 62-page pitcher injury report in the offseason. They talked to 200 knowledgeable people on the subject, whether it be doctors, players, officials.
I read it.
Yes. Flax was not talked to, but he did offer his services, of course. He did, however, read that 62-page document for you and has a wonderful article to share all of his findings with everyone. But what was the repercussions of this report that came out to talk to us and tell us more about why the MLB believes we're having so many pitcher injuries, and so many pitcher injuries even at the minor league level as well, or players having these young in their career from a standpoint of surgery? They enacted a rule or a policy this week that they're calling the Amateur Recovery Period Policy. Prior to knowing the name, I affectionately decided to call it the Dead Period Rule Change.
That's what they called it in college. Was like a recruiting dead period. It's kind of the same.
And basically, the gist of this, what you need to know, is that there is going to be a time period for college players. It's between November 15th and I believe it was January 15th. And for high school players, it's October 15th to January 15th. MLB teams are not allowed to essentially scout these players. They're not allowed to go see them for the purpose of scouting. They're not allowed to take in data about these players for scouting. Essentially, what Major League Baseball is hoping this does is give amateur players a time off of quote-unquote max effort activities, is how I would summarize it for you and others. Obviously, we've seen baseball take off for a long time. Flax and I are both part of the first generation of what I would consider travel ball showcase kids, where every weekend we found ourselves somewhere. We weren't maybe as highly touted as many names as you might know, because we're here talking about this on a podcast. However, it doesn't mean we don't understand the grind of all year around baseball and being part of these travel and showcase teams to try to show ourselves off to colleges and, in a sense, for many people, professional coaches. I'll start, Flax. I think I do like this change off rip. And I guess we'll get more into why. But my off-cuff reaction was, this makes a lot of sense. This is coming from a guy who has had one shoulder surgery, coming from somebody who definitely was hey, can you throw tomorrow? Lots of ibuprofen. Yeah, I'm fine. Let me throw. Let me get the ball. Understanding the fact that if I didn't take the ball, it was an opportunity going away from me to show off who I was and be somebody who could be beneficial towards my team. I think having a rule like this, especially for high schoolers, is going to help with how often we see PRP or perfect game put on showcases during the winter, allowing for time for these young arms to really heal. Off rip, I think my biggest concern is baseball has heavily developed in how we, especially on the pitching side, develop you as a pitcher. And in the meantime, we've forgotten about ramping guys up properly, because all of a sudden there's no such thing as a ramp-up period when you're throwing 12 months out of the year. You're ramped up 100% of the time while you try to get better. And my biggest hope with all of this is we learn once again how to ramp up players at every level in order to not hurt people's arms. We've seen college coaches talk about how they ramp people up in the past, right? Jackson has talked to us about how ETSU has done it with their pitchers, not having them throw full starts early in seasons. Honestly, those pitchers are ramped up enough where even a guy like Jackson, I think, would admit to the fact that they could throw these guys 6 innings no problem because they never stop throwing. So I hope ramp-up period is learned from this, and I hope the injuries go down. But that portion that I talked about is where I see more injuries happening because we don't know how to ramp guys up.
It's a good hope. I think the whole idea behind conditioning for a purpose has kind of been lost, right? We've talked about this numerous times when you look at the difference between how they train in Japan versus how they train in the U.S. In Japan, they train for the idea of learning how to take yourself longer in a game, how to pitch over the course of a season, how to have your body manage it and handle it. They also do a better job of pacing those guys out, right? You're not throwing every 5th day, you're throwing every 6th day. I think in the U.S., there's 2 things that come into it. At the big league level, there's investment. I'd rather have a guy give me his best 5 every 5 days than give me his best 7 every 6 days. I kind of understand that aspect, but on the flip side of that, sometimes his best 5 for 5 innings means I got to shut him down for a month halfway through the season because his best and his most in a 5-inning stretch tends to be more wear and tear than asking him to learn how to pace out 7 innings. Sometimes learning how to pace out 7 innings and knowing by the end of 7 innings that you're not beat to shreds is an important way to get through a season. You look at guys like Justin Verlander. Sometimes they come out of a start looking like they just went 10 rounds. Sometimes they look like they just knocked somebody out in the first round and they go 8. It's not an every time you do the same thing type of effort. I think when you look at the period as a whole, that's the goal, getting to that place where we've made an adjustment. I think the problem is you're not going to stop these kids from playing during this rest period. I'd love if high schoolers in the wintertime from November to January went and played on a basketball team. Don't play baseball. Let your arm rest, go be athletic, and go do something else. But the likelihood is, and you and I grew up in the Northeast, you can't do that. You know in the back of your mind there's somebody in Texas, there's somebody in Georgia, there's somebody in Florida, there's somebody in California who is not only able to play baseball or working on their skills, they're on an actual baseball field doing it, much less being in a situation where you're in a cage on indoor turf, working in the weight room, doing some sort of training and preparation. And I think the air of making sure you stay up to whatever level somebody else is playing at seems to be the main driver. The likelihood is that you're really not going to change much. But what you are doing is you're giving the scouts a chance to rest, right? These guys are allowed to have the relationship building conversations. There's not allowed to be any data involved. They're not allowed to be in communication or go view the guys playing. But like, you and I have both talked to a couple of different scouts that we know out there, and they've both said, like, this really isn't going to inhibit much of what I do anyways. It's not going to change the guys that I potentially see. It's not taking away opportunities from players out there that maybe are losing a period of getting seen. Teams are going to move around their pro days. Those facilities that run all these types of events are just going to move around the dates that those happen so that they can still do them within the windows that these scouts can see it. I think the biggest people that this is impacting is the Tread Athletics, the Drive Lines, the Ranch, all these places that do all this training, because part of the sell is, oh yeah, we got XYZ guys that hang around our facility. The problem is guys can't just hang around a facility. This is a very policeable process or very policeable instituted policy that the MLB is putting in place. And the sanctions are very, very, very important. The fact that guys can get fined, they can get suspended, it can affect your international draft status, your international signing money, your amateur draft status. There's a lot of things that can be impacted here as a team that if you have a guy go rogue, his job is going to be liable. He's not going to go rogue over his job in 1 player, 2 players, 10 players. So the reality of the situation here is you're not changing much in the way people interact with each other in player to scout. You're just kind of changing the schedule around these training facilities and how they set themselves up for everyone else, in my opinion.
So I think that you mentioned 2 things that I think are great. One, the policeability of this I think is extremely important for the MLB. I think that them making a rule that they can actually govern in a way is extremely important. And it also allows for changes in the future, right? If it's something that is like a pass interference rule where judgment is involved, you can't adjust. So I think that there's some people who may feel like this is strict, and there's some people who may not love it, but I think it's something that can really, really be changed in a positive way as needed. And then I think the other piece is exactly what you said with the Drive Lines and the Tread Athletics. My hope is that those groups see this actually as an opportunity to really dive into the ability to ramp players up in the right way and help them prepare for the long haul rather than make that 1 or 2 pitches better through a lot of max effort, because that's required in order to really develop those pitches. I understand that I simply at this point play men's league baseball, but I made the joke to Flax the other day that I'm extremely excited to put guys on programs within our team in order to help them get better. One of the things that I really want to do this year within my personal arsenal is to revamp the splitter or changeup that I have. I also understand that I can't do that safely for myself until after I ramp myself up back closer to full-on max effort, because if I try to do it sooner than that, outside of messing with grips and catch play, I'm going to hurt myself. And again, I'm 30 years old. This is different for me. I don't bounce back the way that I used to, but it is a real-life example of I'm putting myself through a dead period on purpose because I have to look out for my body at this point in my life. Now, if I did that when I was 18, we'd have a totally different discussion right now. So I want this to be impactful and for everybody to understand why this matters for young players. And I hope this does also err on the side of guys not playing just baseball for the entire year at the end of the day. So, Flax, that's my final thoughts on this. Yours?
No, I don't really have much else to add, if I'm going to be honest with you. I think it just really breaks down to, I hope that parents of players start to notice what the MLB is trying to do, and they kind of take a stand against the travel ball circuit that as it exists. I think it's a problem in and of itself. The fact that we've got 10 to 12-year-olds going all over the country to play baseball is the dumbest thing in the world to me. Like, between 10 to 12 years old, you should be playing rec baseball with your friends and having fun with the game, learning things here and there. But you're not big enough, you're not strong enough yet to really understand what the next level of elite baseball is anyways. Go enjoy it, go have fun, go understand and build some baseball IQ. Once you start to get towards high school, that's when you start to better understand your body and what it can actually do. Why we're trying to train ourselves to do certain things before that point doesn't make sense to me. So I hope parents start to take notice of this more than anything and start to make a change in the way that they engage their kids in the game.
Love it. Couldn't agree more. Let's go to our last topic here, which we're going to go at lightning pace here because you guys have spent a good hour plus with us already, and we appreciate you. Flax, there's 3 names that I want to bring up. We're going to go 1 minute on each of these names, but let's start with the resurgence of the one and only Walker Buehler with Boston this year. 112.1 innings, a 5.45 ERA, a 5.91 FIP. He was not the guy we had hoped he would be in Boston, but in only 8.21 innings with Philly, and yes, small sample size, he has changed up how much he's throwing his fastball, and it has really, really helped the walk percentage here, which I think is huge for him. Through that 8.2 innings, a 1.04 ERA, his walk percentage his walks per 9 go from a 4.41 to a 3.12, and he has yet to give up a home run as a Philly. What do you like from Buehler over this time span?
Can I tell you what I like most about Walker Buehler?
Absolutely.
Walker Buehler is such a team guy. You can tell by the way, and I don't really ever look much into like social media, but like the only thing he posts in season is just the most supportive posts about his teammates, even when he's not doing well. And we used to talk about this a ton in college, this idea of mudita. And mudita is this word that describes the ability to be as happy for other people's success as you would be for your own. You could tell Walker Buehler that he's going to be on the bench, and if all the guys around him are doing extremely well, Walker Buehler is going to be just as happy for their successes and the team's success as he would be if it was him out there on the mound. And I think that's what drives him to want to be better, because he wants to be the guy that everyone else gets to lean on. I think he wants that for himself. And so you can tell when he jumps into a new space and he changes what he's throwing and he changes what he's doing a little bit, he's all in on it. Also, the reason why throwing more fastballs is working really well is because he went through a period on the back end with the Dodgers where his fastball was not good enough to be out on its own. And so he focused on throwing breaking balls. And then he got to Boston, where Andrew Bailey famously pitches everyone backwards and leverages a lot of off speed. And everybody was like, oh, this is Walker Buehler now. That's fine. We're just going to spit on that and wait till we get a fastball. Now he's using the fastball as the dominant command piece, and it plays his off speed just a hair better than it was playing in Boston. He can take advantage of how good the off speed is now that he's actually showing the fastball is worth something again. I think that's great. I think it's going to carry him through October. I'm excited to see how it plays in a start and not just out of the bullpen, because that's very different when you have to see a lineup a couple of times through. But he did okay with it on the back end of piggybacking T1 Walker, and I think he's been pretty solid so far. So that's really all I have on Walker Buehler if we're going to keep it quick.
Man, and you know, I don't know what 90 seconds is, but geez Louise. No. I had to give you a hard time. For those of you who don't know, the fastest 90 seconds in baseball, when I do it on our live stream, is more like the fastest 3 minutes in baseball. Either way.
It's a quick 3 minutes.
It's certainly something. The Devin Williams turnaround, air quotes. He has, over his last 2 weeks, 5 innings, no runs, a negative 4.5 FIP, 16.20 Ks per 9. This guy has been arguably the most unlucky pitcher in all of baseball this year, because when you look at his expected stats, they are way better than what we have seen. I'm going to read Jackson's note here because it put a smile on his face. Jackson said, "We are seeing him regress back to the mean," as Ryan loves to say, and I couldn't agree more. Flax, your notes on Devin Williams' turnaround.
I don't think there's much there other than sometimes guys swing and miss and sometimes guys make contact. Like, there hasn't been a massive change in what he's done on the mound other than the teams he's thrown against and the fact that baseball is baseball, right? I think one of the hard parts about being a two-pitch guy is that teams know what you're going to throw. And it means that sometimes you're going to be unlucky because guys are going to square it up. I mean, I would watch outings where he'd have guys ridiculously on their front foot, but they'd still find a way to barrel the ball up. I'm now watching him throw, and he's still making guys look ridiculous, but they're getting it off the end of the bat, and the Yankees are making plays behind him. It's not any different a style of baseball or style of pitching. It's just getting better results, as you kind of expect it would be. It's kind of the Max Kepler effect we were talking about before. You'd rather be this be the Devin Williams at the end of the season and have the Devin Williams you had at the beginning than the other way around. And I think Yankees fans need to just kind of look up to the sky, say thank you, and be happy with it, and walk away.
Baseball's gonna baseball is the best way for us to probably finish that one off. Finally, Cade Smith. Cade Smith. Monster season. We've talked about him multiple times. Just eclipsed again for the second season in a row the 100 strikeout mark as a reliever. 70.2 innings, a 3.06 ERA, a 2.00 FIP. He has given up 0.51 home runs per 9 innings. 34% whiff rate, a 32% chase rate, and people are finding the barrel 4% of the time. Flax, this dude's elite. And his dad's awesome on Twitter.
Yeah, he is. I will say this. Imagine you're Cade Smith, and you're a guy who gets high leverage innings, but you're not the closer because the closer in front of you is the best closer in baseball. And then halfway through a season that is not going the way your team wants it to go, you find out that 2 of your best bullpen arms are no longer on your team. Their locker is cleared out because of a gambling scandal. And the general consensus around the baseball community is we maybe have seen the last pitch thrown in Major League Baseball by Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz. You could have either cowered from the moment and said, I guess I'm going to try and be the closer, or you can be Cade Smith and you can say, oh, I'll just be the best closer in baseball. That's fine. And that's basically what he's done, is he's come out and he just dominates every time he throws. And I think, I've always said this, it takes a different mindset to be a closer. And, you know, we talked to Brad Lidge, and I think he was more insightful than I would normally have given credit to closers to be. And he's changed my thought process on closers to begin with. But I generally think of closers as like they have the right mentality, and that's no mentality. They just get out there and do the thing. I think there's still a little bit of that. And I think Cade Smith does an incredible job of just kind of putting the blinders on, showing up, showing out, and getting on to the next day. It's kind of what you need in October, right? I mean, it's so impressive to see. I think the other thing for me, when you look at the opportunity that they have going into October and who he could be for them in October, I like the fact that he's a very heavy splitter guy, but he has the sweeper to work off of, and the sweeper is a very, very good sweeper. Gives me a little bit more comfort. I've told you this forever. I don't love sinker ball, and I don't love splitter closers late in October. They're very hard pitches to throw in the cold, especially the splitter. It's hard to get your finger around the ball. It's hard to get the command that you want to get on the ball when the weather gets colder. I generally prefer guys that are more changeup heavy or sweeper heavy. The fact that he's got the sweeper to couple the splitter, and he's 70% fastball and he throws it hard, and he's got really good ride on it. I mean, this year I think he's gotten a couple 22, 23-inch IVB fastballs. Tells me he's going to be able to close games in a lot of different ways, and he's going to work around what I would call the defect of the closer in October.
Yeah, one of the best fastballs in all of baseball over the last 2 seasons. He's a guy who's had a 39 run value, probably will be over 40 against those 2 seasons combined with the fastball. He has hitters are hitting 174 over the last 2 seasons against the fastball at the current moment with the WOBA that is only very below average. No other way to put it. The sweeper this year, too, is very improved, and obviously he is throwing it at a relatively similar rate here in 2025. I think what makes that excellent is the fact that his whiff percentage this year to last year, because of the pitch mix changes they've made, has gone from 29.2% on that pitch to a 41.3% on that pitch. His whiff rate across the board has been higher in 2025. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All of those guys have been excellent, and they're heating up just at the right time. Flex, final thoughts. I'll let you go first.
Mike Trout hit his 400th career home run. Nick Castellanos hit his 250th career home run. And if you didn't know, those two guys in their career are separated by only less than 10 hits. People often forget that Mike Trout has hit 150 more career home runs and almost the same amount of hits as Nick Castellanos in their career. Big ups to both of them. Really cool milestones to hit. Hitting 1 home run in the big leagues is incredible, but to hit 400 for Mike Trout and 250 for Nick Castellanos is pretty cool. So that's my closing thought on the day.
Love it. I've got 2 real quick ones. First one, Wednesday. Be there, be square. Paul Skeens versus Hunter Green. You don't want to miss it in the middle of a playoff run for the Cincinnati Reds. Skeens is going to come out firing. Hunter Green is going to come out firing. Expect it. And finally, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you see Flax's hat right now, shout out to Coach Zuniga and the Hawaii crew down there. That hat is sick.
Shout out Fitted Hawaii for their
there it is. I was
drop.
about to say Zuniga recommended Fitted Hawaii. We got to see one of their hats on his head during our interview. Totally agree. Sick hat. Fitted Hawaii. You're friggin' awesome.
Real quick for you to finish, do you know why they say be there or be square?
No, but you should tell me.
Because you're not around.
That's pretty good. I feel like I should have known that.
Yeah.
There you go. We're pretty funny today. Punny, funny. I don't know. Your choice. Either way, we hope you guys enjoyed the episode as always. Share the podcast with your friends. Follow us on socials, X, Instagram, or TikTok. Come say hi. Our live stream every single Friday when available, because there will not be one this week on Fridays. But past that, playoff baseball is almost upon us. Have a great week.